What is up, YouTube? HPJ here, and the announcement many of you have been waiting for is the OCG's Forbidden Limited list. Shoutouts to Respect Yu-Gi-Oh because they're the ones who had this is their picture from the updates that are online, and yeah, this is the OCG's Forbidden Limited list. So I got to do some descriptions and talks about with this because many people are going to be confused. There's a TCG and an OCG side to Yu-Gi-Oh. The OCG, which is quote the official card game, is basically for the areas that are Japan and other areas that are in the Asian region. Outside of Korea, I think that follow no Korea does follow the OCG for Limited list, but they get cards really late, and Asian English, which follows their own Forbidden Limited list. I don't talk about the Asian English list for multiple reasons, just because of the fact that they have their own ban list. Their product is now coming to them, and I didn't even know that China was this far behind in terms of cards, but I thought they were always attached to the OCG, but okay. And when it comes to us here in the TCG, we love looking at OCG Forbidden Limited list because it sparks, conversation about what our list could be like, what things from our list have they taken to better their own, and what strategies we can utilize here in the TCG side from the OCG. Because many of you who know the OCG, well, for those who don't know, the OCG gets ban list ahead of time than we do. We only get list not lists, but we get cards. Um, we'll get cards that are like later on. We have our TCG exclusives, and in some cases, we don't get cards at all. Look at all those tons of normal monsters that are still in the OCG that we have not gotten here in TCG. You're probably understanding that now because most of you are playing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection, and you're looking at a lot of the older cards that still have not come to TCG, because that is a thing. Now, looking at this Forbidden Limited list, because I'm already 2 minutes in, there's major changes to it. There's a lot of them. And I'm going to go through them and then give my opinion on them um, after such. So, for the newly forbidden cards, they have Artifact Scythe, they have Summon Limit. For the newly limited, they have Sword Razion, Dimension Shifter, Malice, P, Dormouse, 7 Tachyon, and the Grasslick Screener. For the newly semi-limited, Cyberjar and Pearly Sleepy Memory. And for their newly unlimited, Fire King High Avatar Kirin, Performer Pound Monkey Board, Chronograph Sorcerer, Masterpiece, The True Draco Slaying King, Morphing Jar, Snatch Steel, and Zodiac Barrage. So there are a lot of key points to talk about in this list, and there's a lot of key things to address from this list, because, oh wow, it is definitely a lot rolling all into this. So let's start off with the forbidden section. These were two cards that are currently, I believe, also banned here in the CCG. Their Summon Limit and their Artifact Scythe. Here's the thing about floodgates, and everybody who doesn't know, floodgates are cards that prevent other actions from happening. Yu-Gi-Oh has always had a wave of floodgates. They've always had a wave of cards to help with control or to feed the control aspect of the TCG OCG. Not lying. And one of the craziest things that I've always said is that there's a lineup of things that circumvent with cards like Artifact Scythe and with cards like um, Summon Limits. Now, what is these things that I am currently talking about? Well, let's start off with the fact that Artifact Scythe is known for its ability to shut off special summons for your opponent till the end of the turn when it is destroyed by a card effect while in the spell and trap card zone. This tends to also be part of the main reason. Oh no, when it's special summon after it's been a minute since I had to use Artifact Scythe. But it prevents special summons for your opponent's side to field for the turn. And there are tons of strategies to basically pop this Artifact Scythe and continue comboing off of the destruction of that Artifact Scythe. It also is just another body that can be placed onto the field. It's another setup card. that can be utilized for combo pieces. There's just so much that you can get out of an artifact monster. And between Scythe and Morale Tech and Beagle Tech, who were all basically used, yeah, artifacts. Yeah, they were definitely that deck. Well, they were definitely that archetype that was so splashable in many situations that they had to be hit for particular reasons. And now Scythe is being banned in the OCG because, yeah, it's just way too much stuff going on with Artifact Scythe. Summon limit, same situation. Preventing or limiting the amounts of summons that you and your opponent have access to, but then being able to pop it on your turn so that you can have access to the special summons and finding ways to reset it. This is part of the reason why summon limit had to be hit in the TCG, because it's just abusable. There's just ways to abuse a lot of these cards. And while some people say these cards, back in the day used to not be as much of a problem, and we have access to cards now that can deal with them, you also forget that we're living in the time where the format is I have 15 Omni negates, or ways to make 15 Omni negates and stop things the minute something is played that I don't like. And cards like Summon Limit and Scythe weren't supposed to initially be cards that were supposed to be splashable into those decks. They were just supposed to be usable to stop those certain actions and then continue on with the game state as it is. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out the way that Konami probably intended it to. Now, let's move on into the newly limited. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the Raziel in the Malice monsters. Sword Raziel and Malice P. Dormouse. Two hits to two of the game's biggest decks right now in the format. And for the competitive aspect, I'm pretty sure many people are like, yes, they hit two very particular cards for these particular archetypes. I'm pretty sure they'll bounce back. They always find a way to, and I do believe the next two sets in the OCG, and that will be coming soon to TCG, will have support for both Malice and Raziel. So these hits may be minor, but if these hits do detriment to the game state of those decks, then it's fine. But as we all know, tier decks tend to start building up their prowess. Even if one or two cards are hit, they'll find other cards to utilize to make up for it. Outside of that, really, it's just more hits to two expensive decks. But that, depends on how things go from there. D-Shifter getting a limited status because D-Shifter can be very abusable um, as a generic card to interrupt decks. And while some people can play around it, some can't. And while some people can use it, some options just tend to be very detriment to some combos. And just like I said with um, about floodgates, when I talked about both summon limit and artifact scythe, this in a way is a hand trap that can also be utilized as a floodgate because it mimics macrocosmos till the end of, or I believe to your next standby phase. So that can be, while for some it doesn't seem like much of an issue, it is a detriment to the opponent or to you as the opponent. And it does, circumvent those cases where here we go again with hand traps being too either overpower, overbearing, and then having to deal with the situations at hand. And it's crazy though because most people would think, oh, banishing cards that's supposed to be an end all to some situations, but some people have to remember this is New School Yu-Gi-Oh. New School Yu-Gi-Oh has ways to play around those situations or even take advantage of those situations. And D-Shifter is one of those examples of even if this card becomes an issue, I can still play around it or I can play into it. So 7 Tachyon, I can't tell you for the light of day to me what this card does. I'm sure it has to do with either. I don't know. I'm not even gonna talk about it. Let's not push the situation there. And then we have the grass looks greener. This card. Oh, this card. Yeah, this card. Grass looks greener. 60 card deck, 60 card mill deck, 60 card abuse. These type of card decks always will be a thing. And I will definitely tell you, just looking at the lineup of things when it comes to grass looks greener. I remember when those 60 card decks were being built, those pile decks, as they called them in TCG, to basically take advantage of, the shenanigans that is, grass looks greener, because that's what grass did. I remember grass light sworn. I remember grass in, um, God, I remember so many different variants of grass. I remember someone I knew had took grass with them and did infernoids with grass, because grass looked greener infernoid was definitely a thing. So yeah, definitely a lot, huh? It's definitely a lot with grass looks greener. I'm pretty sure they wanted to prevent that, even after the fact they put it to two. Then let's go into the semi-limited. We have Cyberjar and we have Pearly Sleeping Memory. Let's start off with Cyberchar, a flip monster from back in the beginning states of the game that was unbanned because the game state has definitely gotten faster than what Cyberjar itself is. Now, while Empty Jar is a deck, and for those who don't know what Empty Jar is, it's basically a mill out deck that use cards like Fiber Jar, Morphing Jar number 2, Cyber Jar, and various other cards to flip the monsters face up and face down to then be able to utilize their effects again. Why does it seem like something so potent? Nowadays, these were rogue strategies that definitely caused some chaos of their own, um, for whatever time period in which their rans were. And Cyberjar itself, well, it doesn't seem much of a competitive issue. There were definitely people who did play it for its competitive usage, or just to take advantage of being used as a competitive option to just, do whatever it wanted to do, which was flip itself up, blow up every monster on the field, have you and your opponent pick up 5 cards, and then monsters who are level 4 or lower were the ones that were played. Everything else went to your hand. And in some cases, if you knew your opponent was playing a deck that relied on heavy spells or traps, not only did you have access and knowledge to those cards, play around those strategies, but you're also thinning out your opponent's deck. And that was one of the reasons why they ended up banning it, because it was just too much utility with Cyberjar because of the empty jar strategies. Nowadays, no one really cares about empty jar because there's ways to stop empty jar. There's ways to take advantage of empty jars, line up and things. Now, empty jar strategies probably do change because there are more jar cards that have been added to the TCG and the OCG. But is really Cyber Dragon that much of a threat? I mean, Cyber Dragon that much of a threat? Not really. Cyber Dragon, yeah, that can be a threat, especially if it's in the right build. But Cyber Jar, no, just here. Pearly Sleepy Memory, just another wave of cleanup for the Pearly because, well, Pearly's not meta anymore and not much of a competitive threat. But it still has a lot of ways to be a threat. And maybe just giving the boost of Sleeping Memory just to even things out. I do believe there's still other Pearly cards that are still on the Forbidden Limited list for the OCG. So it kind of just wavers itself out. Moving on to the newly unlimited, and this is probably where a lot of things are just cards being added to be a wave of cleanup to strategies that aren't more prevalent now, or to boost strategies that definitely want to be boosted up. First off is the Fire Kings, which we have seen them here and there in terms of Ubel Fire King with the new Ubel support, Fiendsmith Fire Kings, Snake Eyes and Fire Kings, just, the lot of the basis of destroying your own cards and benefiting from them. Kieran was definitely a card that could be utilized in that strategy, but not so much of, it's the thing we have to go, here it goes, type of situations. It was just another beat stick you can have on the field and then have destruction abilities and stuff like that. Perform Power Monkey board in Chronograph Magician as a way to clean up for Pepe and Pepe Magician and Pendulum Magician deck. Giving them some more boosts. Masterpiece of Draco Slaying King, just to add back the power boss monster that he was. Can he still be abusable? Probably, depending on how the decks are built. That Draco Slayer can be a thing, and with cards like Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Prosperity, although they're limited in semi-limited in some areas, they're still a really good viable usage to that deck because it does not care about its special summons. It only focuses on normal summons to begin with. Morphine Jar, like I said, with Cyber Jar, the Empty Jar strategy kind of situation, and there's a way to deal with Morphine Jar and stuff like that. Snatch Steal, I'm shocked is at 3 because it's not at 3 here. It's I think at 1, but Change of Heart is the one that's at multiples. And while most people would probably say Change Your Heart is the bigger threat, Snatch Steal isn't much of a threat when you can just MST and blow it up and then get rid of the monster or get back the monster and stuff like that. Zodiac Barrage. I still cannot believe this card has been unbanned, but the OCG has unbanned who is it? Zodiac Triton, which still, I mean, Raziel is probably part of that reason. And I really don't see too much prospering from Zodiac if Zodiac tries to want to benefit from playing around with it. I mean, they can, because it's still one of Zodiac's, biggest utility cards. So, yeah, I definitely can see, them shaping up to it. But, yeah, outside of that, I mean, Zodiac Mirage at 3. I mean, yeah. So, what do I say about RN? TCG players, what do you want me to say about Zodiac, about this Forbidden Limited list? I can see some changes of it showing up on the TCG's Forbidden Limited list where it hits to Raziel and Malice. Maybe a possible hit to D-Shifter, and potentially keeping Grasslick Screener at 1. Now, in terms of everything else on this list, I do see some cards being moved around just to fit into ways of support coming in the future. But I also want to know and take what cards could be unbanned. Because listen, I've always said this in a factor of, I would love to see some more come back. And I don't understand why Divine Wind of Miss Valley is still at 1 in the TCG. Because is wind really that much of a threat that they have to continue wind cards being hit, or is there just some lineup of strategy that they don't want certain cards to be unbanned in those types of situations because they're just too powerful? Who's to tell? And then just looking at the overall lineup of things, the TCG is still waiting for our Forbidden Limited list, which can only come in just a matter of time. And once it does come in a matter of time, then we will, see how things go from there. So, with that said and done, I'm going to wrap up this video by simply saying, let's just wait out for the TCG's Forbidden Limited list and go from there. And OCG players, can't wait to see what strategies and decks you build on your end. So with that said and done, let me know in the comment section what you guys think about the OCG Forbidden Limited list. 9 out of 10, most people are not going to even make it through the first half of the video. But, yeah, thanks for at least those who did watch it show up. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel as it helps me out tremendously. You can hit the notification bell to be informed of when I upload more of the content to the channel. Socials are in the description box below. And with that said and done, HPJ signing out. Take care.